Captain Daniel Harris stood in the Grand Hall of Zenith Prime, trying not to look impressed. The diplomatic station floated in neutral space, a massive structure built by a dozen alien species working together. Crystal walls rose 50 feet high, reflecting light from 3 different suns. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the chamber, their forms ranging from towering reptilian beings to small floating creatures made of pure energy. Daniel wore his dress uniform, the dark blue fabric pressed and clean. A small Earth flag patch sat on his shoulder. He was one of 5 humans at the summit, representing his planet's first real step into galactic politics. 3 months ago, Earth had been accepted into the Galactic Coalition. Now they were here to prove they belonged. "Try not to stare," Lieutenant Amy Sullivan whispered beside him. She was his aide, a sharp young officer who spoke 4 alien languages. "Ambassador Grant says we need to look confident." Daniel nodded. Ambassador Nicole Grant stood 20 feet away, speaking with a group of insectoid diplomats. She had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. Humanity's future in the stars depended on making a good impression. The main ceremony began with speeches from coalition leaders. Daniel listened to translation devices rendering alien languages into English. They talked about peace, prosperity, and cooperation. Standard diplomatic language that meant little and promised less. That was when he noticed her watching him. She stood across the hall, impossible to miss. Her skin had a faint purple tint, and her eyes glowed with an inner light. She wore armor that looked both ceremonial and functional, decorated with symbols Daniel did not recognize. 2 guards flanked her, nearly 7 feet tall and heavily armed. She was staring directly at Daniel, and she was smiling. Not a friendly smile. "Who is that?" Daniel asked quietly. Amy checked her datapad. "Princess Valera of the Kale Thar Empire. 3rd in line for the throne. Military commander. Age 26, in Earth years. The Kale Thar are one of the Coalition's major military powers." "She looks angry." "She looks amused," Amy corrected. "That might be worse." The princess began walking toward them. Her guards followed, and conversations died as delegates noticed her movement. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. "The human delegation," Valera said in perfect galactic common. Her voice carried across the chamber. "How interesting to finally see you in person." Daniel straightened. "Princess Valera, it is an honor to meet you." "Is it?" She looked him up and down, her expression making clear she found him lacking. "I have been curious about your species. You arrived in the Coalition through diplomacy and trade agreements. Very clever. Very safe. We believe in peaceful cooperation," Nicole Grant said, stepping forward with a diplomatic smile. Valera ignored her, keeping her eyes on Daniel. "Tell me, Captain Harris, what battles have you fought?" "I have served in several conflicts," Daniel replied carefully. "Against other humans, yes?" Valera's smile widened. "Fighting your own kind over pieces of one small planet. How impressive." Several delegates nearby shifted uncomfortably. The insult was clear. "Earth has had its share of wars," Daniel said evenly. "We are working to move beyond them." "Of course you are," Valera said. "Because you have never faced real combat. You have never stood against an actual enemy. The Coalition has fought wars that lasted centuries. We have defended territory across solar systems. And you want to stand among us as equals?" "Jom. Equals." "The Coalition accepted our application," Nicole said, her voice tight. "We met all requirements. Requirements written by diplomats." Valera waved a hand dismissively. "Not warriors. Your species bought their seat at this table with trade goods and promises. You have never earned it through strength." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. Amy touched his arm lightly, a silent warning to stay calm. "We do not measure worth through violence alone," Daniel said. Valera laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the crystal walls. "Listen to him. He speaks of peace while wearing a military uniform. Tell me, Captain, have you ever fought an enemy who could actually defeat you? Or do humans only fight battles they know they can win?" Other delegates were watching now. Some looked sympathetic to Daniel, Others seemed curious about how he would respond. A few appeared to agree with Valera. "I fight when necessary," Daniel said. "I prefer to avoid it when possible." "How convenient." Valera stepped closer. She stood only inches from him now. "The Kael'thar do not have that luxury. We are warriors by birth and by choice. We have defended the coalition borders for 300 years. We have lost millions in battles you cannot imagine. And now we are supposed to welcome humans as our military equals?" "No one claimed we were your equals in military strength," Nicole said. "No one claimed you were our equals in anything," Valera replied. "You are soft-worlders who grew up in comfort. Your planet has barely any predators. Your wars are fought with machines and politics. You have never known real struggle." Daniel took a slow breath. He had faced hostile commanders before. He had been insulted by better enemies than this spoiled princess. He would not give her the satisfaction of a reaction. "If you will excuse me, princess, I have other delegates to meet," Daniel said politely. "Running away already?" Valera called after him. "How very human." Daniel kept walking. Amy and Nicole followed him to the far side of the chamber. "That was well handled," Nicole said quietly. "She was trying to provoke you." "It worked," Daniel muttered. "But you did not show it," Amy pointed out. "That counts." The summit continued through the afternoon. Daniel met delegates from a dozen species, each with their own agendas and perspectives on humanity. Most were polite. Some were genuinely curious about Earth. A few shared Valera's skepticism but expressed it more tactfully. Valera, however, was not finished. Throughout the day, she made comments within Daniel's hearing. She questioned human courage. She mocked Earth's military technology. She suggested that humans were better suited to trade negotiations than real coalition membership. Other delegates began to notice. An elderly alien named Chancellor Voss approached Daniel during a break between sessions. "Princess Valera is young," Voss said in a wheezing voice. His species resembled walking trees. "She does not understand the value of restraint. She has strong opinions," Daniel replied carefully. "She has her mother's pride without her mother's wisdom," Voss said. "Empress Kael'ara is a great warrior and a wise leader. Her daughter has learned only half those lessons." "The Empress is here?" Amy asked. "In private councils." Voss nodded. "She does not attend public sessions often. Too many attempts on her life over the years. She prefers to work behind closed doors." The day's final session was a reception in the Grand Hall. Delegates mingled over drinks and food from 100 worlds. Daniel stood with the human delegation, trying to project confidence he did not entirely feel. Valera appeared beside him without warning. She carried a ceremonial glass filled with blue liquid. "Captain Harris," she said sweetly. "I wanted to apologize for earlier." Daniel tensed. This felt like a trap. "No apology necessary," he said. "Oh, but I insist." Valera moved closer. "Too close. I was perhaps too harsh in my assessment of your people." She gestured with her glass as she spoke. The movement seemed casual. The result was not. Blue liquid splashed across Daniel's uniform, staining the dark fabric. "Oh!" Valera gasped. "How clumsy of me. I am so sorry." Her tone made clear she was not sorry at all. Her guards were smirking. Daniel looked down at his ruined uniform. Every delegate nearby had seen what happened. This was a calculated insult, designed to humiliate him in front of the entire coalition. He met Valera's eyes. She was waiting for him to react, to lose his temper, to prove her point about human weakness. Daniel smiled. "Accidents happen, princess," he said calmly. "Please, think nothing of it." He turned and walked away, leaving Valera standing there with her manufactured surprise. He heard Amy suppress a laugh behind him. But as Daniel left the hall to change uniforms, he wondered how long he could maintain his diplomatic facade. And he wondered if Valera would ever understand what she was actually provoking. The next morning brought formal council sessions. Daniel sat in the human delegation section, wearing a fresh uniform. The council chamber was smaller than the grand hall, arranged in curved tiers so every species could see the speakers at the center. The session focused on trade routes and resource sharing, dry topics that required careful negotiation. Daniel listened as ambassadors debated shipping lanes and mining rights. Nicole Grant spoke twice, presenting Earth's modest proposals with practiced diplomacy. Valera sat 3 tiers above them, her purple armor gleaming in the artificial light. She made no effort to hide her boredom. When Nicole finished speaking about agricultural exports, Valera leaned toward another delegate and whispered something. They both laughed. "Ignore her," Amy muttered. Daniel tried. The session continued with painful slowness. A delegate from the Theron Alliance proposed new security measures for frontier stations. Another argued about patrol schedules. The topics shifted, but the tension remained. During the afternoon break, Daniel walked the station corridors to clear his head. Zenith Prime was a marvel of engineering. With gardens that grew plants from 50 worlds and observation decks offering views of nearby nebulas, he found a quiet spot overlooking the stars. "Beautiful, is it not?" Daniel turned. A tall alien in military armor stood nearby. His species was humanoid but covered in fine scales. A commander's insignia marked his chest plate. "It is," Daniel agreed. "Commander Kyle Morrison," the alien extended a hand. "Theron Alliance Defense Force." They shook hands. Morrison's grip was firm but not challenging. "You are the human captain that Princess Valera has been targeting," Morrison said. It was not a question. News travels fast. The princess makes sure of it. Morrison moved to stand beside Daniel at the window. "She wants everyone to see her humiliate you. It proves her superiority, in her mind. Do you agree with her assessment?" Morrison was quiet for a moment. 3 years ago, I was assigned to a joint task force in the border regions. Classified operation. The official records are limited. What happened? We encountered a situation beyond our mission parameters, Morrison said carefully. A civilian station under attack. My orders were to withdraw and report. The enemy was too strong, and we were not equipped for a rescue operation. Daniel waited. There was a human ship nearby. Morrison continued. Small crew. They were not part of the task force. They were just passing through. They heard the distress call. They helped? They did more than help. Morrison turned to face Daniel. They bought us time. 4 humans against an enemy company. They held position for 7 hours while we evacuated the civilians. By the time our reinforcements arrived, 3 of those humans were dead. The 4th was so badly injured we thought we would lose her too. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He knew stories like that. Too many of them. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because I have seen what humans do when others need them, Morrison said. I have fought alongside your species. Valera has not. She judges you based on propaganda and pride. She does not understand what you are capable of. I appreciate that. Do not appreciate it. Morrison's tone hardened. I am warning you. Valera is trying to provoke you into a formal challenge. If you accept, she will fight you according to Kael'thar law. She is a trained warrior who has killed in single combat. You would be at a severe disadvantage. I am not going to challenge her. She knows that, Morrison said. That is why she keeps pushing. Every time you back down, she uses it as proof that humans are cowards. She is building a narrative that will follow your species for years. Daniel looked back at the stars. What would you do? I would remember that sometimes the bravest choice is patience, Morrison said. But I would also watch my back. The princess is young and stupid. That makes her dangerous. They parted ways. Daniel returned to the council chamber for the evening session. The topics had shifted to military cooperation and defense protocols. This was where the real power in the coalition was decided. Valera spoke during this session. She stood at the central podium, her voice carrying authority that came from generations of military leadership. The coalition faces threats on multiple fronts, she said. Pirates, raiders, and hostile factions that would destroy everything we have built. We need warriors who can defend our borders. Warriors with experience in real combat. She paused, letting her eyes sweep across the chamber. They landed on Daniel. Some species joined the coalition through strength, Valera continued. Others through wisdom or technology. And some join through clever negotiation. But when danger comes, we cannot negotiate with it. We need those who have been tested in fire. Nicole Grant stood. If the princess has concerns about Earth's defensive capabilities, we would be happy to provide detailed briefings. I am sure your briefings are very thorough, Valera said with a smile. I am simply noting that there is a difference between reading about war and living through it. Earth has extensive military experience, Nicole replied. Against yourselves. Valera shot back. You have fought civil wars and territorial disputes. You have never faced an enemy that truly wanted to destroy you. You have never known real fear. Daniel's hands clenched in his lap. Amy noticed and touched his arm again. The Kyle Thar Empire has fought wars that would break weaker species, Valera went on. We have held the line against darkness for centuries. We understand sacrifice. We understand loss. Can humanity say the same? We have held the line. We have held the line. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in agreement. Valera was playing to the crowd. And she was winning. The session ended with no resolution. Delegates filed out, heading toward the evening reception. Daniel walked slowly, his mind churning. She is trying to break you, Amy said. Don, not let her. I know what she is doing. Then why do you look like you want to break something? Daniel did not answer. The reception was held in a garden dome filled with plants from a dozen worlds. Strange flowers released sweet scents into the air. Small creatures that might have been birds or insects flew between branches. Delegates gathered in small groups, their conversations mixing with soft music. Daniel accepted a drink from a passing server and found a quiet corner. He watched the crowd, noting the alliances forming and breaking with each conversation. Politics in action. Valera arrived with an entourage. She wore a different armor tonight, lighter and more decorative. She moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting praise and admiration from various delegates. Then she saw Daniel and changed direction. Captain Harris, she called out loud enough for nearby delegates to hear. Still here? I thought perhaps you had returned to Earth by now. The summit is not finished, Daniel said evenly. No, but your patience must be. Valera stopped in front of him. Tell me, do you always run from challenges? Or is that specific to humans? I do not see any challenges here, Daniel said. Just conversations. Of course, Valera laughed. Everything is just a conversation to humans. You talk when you should act. You debate when you should fight. It is no wonder your species has never built an empire. We are not interested in empires. Because you lack the strength to build them, Valera countered. The Kyle Thar. Rule 17 systems. We have earned every one through blood and courage. What has Earth earned? Our place in this coalition, Nicole Grant said, appearing beside Daniel. Which was granted by vote of the entire assembly. A vote bought with trade deals and promises, Valera said. Not respect. Respect must be earned, Daniel said quietly. I agree with that. Then earn it. Valera leaned closer. Fight me. Single combat. Kyle Thar rules. If you win, I will never question human courage again. If I win, your species admits they are not warriors. The nearby conversations died. Delegates turned to watch. I decline, Daniel said. Of course you do. Valera straightened, her voice dripping with contempt. Because you know you would lose. Because humans talk about strength but crumble when tested. I decline because I am here for peace, Daniel replied. Not to satisfy your ego. My ego? Valera's eyes flashed. You dare speak to me about ego? You, whose species has been in space for less than a century. We were building civilizations when your ancestors were living in caves. Then you should know better than this, Daniel said. The insult was subtle but clear. Valera's expression darkened. Before she could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the garden dome. The peaceful music cut off, replaced by an automated warning in multiple languages. All delegates to secure locations immediately. Station is under attack. Repeat. Station is under attack. The garden erupted into chaos. Delegates ran in different directions, some toward exits, others freezing in panic. Security forces appeared, shouting orders that were lost in the confusion. An explosion rocked the station. The dome shuddered. Several delegates fell. Plants toppled from their containers, soil spilling across the floor. Daniel's training kicked in instantly. He grabbed Nicole and Amy, pulling them toward the nearest wall for cover. Around him, other species security forces were doing the same for their delegates. Another explosion, closer this time. The dome's transparent ceiling cracked. Valera stood in the center of the chaos, her guards forming a protective circle around her. She looked furious at being interrupted. Daniel looked at Amy. "Get the ambassador to the secure bunker. Now. What about you? I need to find out what we are dealing with." A third explosion blew out the garden's main entrance. Through the smoke and debris, Daniel saw armored figures pouring into the dome. They wore black combat suits marked with a red symbol that he recognized from Coalition briefing files. Void Reapers, the most dangerous pirate faction in known space, and they were between Daniel and the only exit. The Void Reapers moved through the smoke with practiced efficiency. Their weapons swept across the garden dome, targeting anyone who moved. Daniel counted at least 20 attackers in the first wave, with more pouring through the breach. "Everyone down!" Daniel shouted. He pulled Nicole and Amy behind a large planter. Around him, other delegates were scrambling for cover. A Reaper fired at a fleeing group of insectoid delegates. The energy blast cut through 2 of them before they could reach safety. Their companions screamed in their clicking language. Daniel's jaw clenched. This was not a random raid. The Reapers were targeting delegates specifically. This was an assassination attempt on a massive scale. "Amy, get Nicole to the emergency bunker," Daniel ordered. "Use the service corridors." "Sir, you should come with us," Amy protested. "I need to buy you time." Daniel looked around the chaos. Security forces from various species were trying to organize, but the Reapers had the advantage of surprise and superior positions. "Go. Now." Nicole grabbed his arm. "Captain, you are not a security officer on this station." "No, ma'am." Daniel met her eyes. "But I am a soldier, and soldiers do not leave people to die." He moved before they could argue further. A serving table had toppled nearby, its contents scattered across the floor. Daniel grabbed a heavy metal tray and a long decorative pole that had held banners. Not much, but better than nothing. 3 Reapers were advancing on a group of delegates huddled behind an overturned fountain. They were taking their time, enjoying the fear. Daniel moved quickly, using the scattered plants and debris for cover. The first Reaper never saw him coming. Daniel swung the pole hard, catching the attacker across the helmet. The Reaper stumbled. Daniel followed with the tray, slamming it into the exposed neck joint of the armor. The Reaper dropped. The second Reaper spun toward Daniel, raising his weapon. Daniel threw the tray like a discus. It struck the weapon, knocking the aim high. The blast went over Daniel's head. He closed the distance, grabbed the weapon barrel, and yanked hard. The Reaper held on. But Daniel used the grip to pull himself closer. He drove his knee into the attacker's midsection, then grabbed the helmet and twisted sharply. The Reaper went down. The third Reaper was smarter. He backed up, putting distance between them, his weapon aimed steady at Daniel's chest. Then Valera's guards speared him from the side. The Kael'thar warrior's blade punched through the Reaper's armor. Like paper. Daniel nodded thanks. The guard nodded back, then returned to protecting Valera. The delegates behind the fountain ran for the exits. Daniel scanned the dome, assessing the situation. More Reapers were entering. Station security was being pushed back. The defensive perimeter was collapsing. Daniel's mind raced through options. He had no weapons, no backup, and no plan. But he had spent 12 years in Earth's military, and he had learned one fundamental truth. When you cannot win by strength, you win by being smarter than your enemy. The dome had 3 main exits, all now controlled by Reapers. But there were service hatches built into the walls for maintenance access. Small, hidden, and probably forgotten by anyone who was not desperately looking for them. Daniel moved through the chaos, helping delegates find cover, directing them toward the service hatches. A group of elderly diplomats was trapped behind a collapsed pillar. Daniel led them through a gap in the Reaper line, using smoke and confusion as cover. A Reaper spotted them and fired. The blast caught Daniel's shoulder, burning through his uniform. Pain flared, but adrenaline kept him moving. He shoved the diplomats towards safety and turned to face the attacker. The Reaper advanced, confident. His armor was undamaged, his weapon charged, and he outweighed Daniel by at least 60 pounds. Daniel grabbed a handful of soil from a broken planter and threw it at the Reaper's helmet visor. The attacker flinched. Daniel charged, staying low. He tackled the Reaper around the waist, driving them both into a decorative stone bench. They hit hard. The Reaper's armor protected him from the worst of it, but the impact still knocked his weapon loose. Daniel grabbed it, but his burned shoulder screamed in protest. His grip failed, the weapon skittered away. The Reaper backhanded Daniel, the armored gauntlet splitting his lip. Daniel tasted blood. The Reaper stood, pulling a combat knife from his belt. Daniel rolled, putting the stone bench between them. His shoulder was bleeding, his head was ringing, and he was facing an armored opponent with a knife. This was not going well. The Reaper lunged over the bench. Daniel grabbed the knife hand with his good arm, stopping the blade inches from his throat. They struggled. Strength against strength. The Reaper was stronger, but Daniel had leverage. He twisted, using the attacker's momentum against him. The Reaper stumbled. Daniel drove his elbow into the Reaper's throat, hitting the gap between helmet and chest armor. The attacker choked. Daniel hit him twice more in the same spot, then swept his legs. The Reaper went down hard. Daniel grabbed the dropped knife and finished it. He stood, breathing hard, bleeding from his shoulder and mouth. Around him, the battle continued. Station security had finally organized a coherent defense, but the Reapers held the main entrances. It was a stalemate. Then Daniel saw the real problem. A group of Reapers was setting up equipment near the dome's main support column, heavy machinery, connected by thick cables. Daniel recognized the configuration from intelligence briefings. Breaching charges, military grade. They were going to collapse the entire dome. "They are rigging explosives," Daniel shouted to the nearest security officer, a reptilian warrior from the Theran Alliance. The officer looked, saw the setup, and his scales went pale. "We cannot reach them in time." I can," Daniel said. "You are injured." "I can still run." Daniel grabbed the Reaper's dropped weapon. "Cover me." "Cover me." He did not wait for agreement. Daniel sprinted across the open garden, zigzagging to avoid fire. Energy blasts scorched the ground around him. One grazed his leg, but he kept running. The Reapers at the support column saw him coming. Two turned to intercept. Daniel fired as he ran, his aim wild, but close enough to make them hesitate. He reached the first Reaper and slammed into him at full speed. They both crashed into the explosive equipment. Cables tore free. The Reaper tried to bring his weapon up, but they were too close. Daniel headbutted him, felt the helmet crack against his forehead. Pain exploded through his skull, but the Reaper went limp. The second Reaper grabbed Daniel from behind, lifting him off his feet. Daniel drove his head backward, hitting the attacker's face. The grip loosened. Daniel twisted free, grabbed the Reaper's weapon arm, and used a joint lock he had learned from Earth's oldest martial arts. The Reaper's elbow hyperextended with a crack. He dropped his weapon. Daniel kicked him away and turned to the explosives. The charges were partially set. Timers running. He had maybe 2 minutes before detonation. Daniel started pulling cables, smashing control panels, doing everything he could to disable the system. More Reapers were coming. Daniel could see them moving through the smoke. He worked faster, his injured shoulder screaming with every movement. "Captain!" It was Valera's voice. She and her guards had broken through to his position. They formed a defensive line between Daniel and the advancing Reapers. "Keep them back," Daniel shouted. I need 30 seconds. The Kael'thar warriors fought with brutal efficiency. Their blades sang through the air, their movements precise and deadly. But the Reapers kept coming, and the defenders were being pushed back. Daniel ripped the last cable free and smashed the main control unit with the butt of his weapon. The timer stopped. The charges were dead. Done, he called out. An explosion rocked the far side of the dome. Different charges, different location. The transparent ceiling cracked further, and Daniel heard the terrible sound of structural failure. The dome is compromised, someone screamed. Full evacuation. The remaining Reapers began retreating, their mission accomplished even if not completed. They had caused enough damage. The station was crippled. Valera grabbed Daniel's good arm. We must go. Now. They ran together toward the emergency exits. Her guards cleared the path, cutting down any Reaper who got in the way. Other delegates were streaming toward the same exits, a desperate mob of different species all fleeing together. Daniel helped an injured diplomat, half carrying them toward safety. The dome groaned above them, cracks spreading like spiderwebs across the ceiling. They reached the corridor just as the garden dome's structural integrity finally failed. The ceiling collapsed inward with a roar of tearing metal and shattering crystal. The blast wave threw Daniel forward. He hit the corridor wall hard and slid to the floor. His ears rang. His vision blurred. Through the haze, he saw Amy and Nicole pulling him to his feet. Sir, we need to move, Amy was saying. The Reapers are in the main corridors. Daniel shook his head to clear it. His shoulder was still bleeding. His uniform was torn and burned, but he was alive. How many delegates made it out? He asked. Most of them, Nicole said. Thanks to you, buying time. The station is still under attack, Daniel said. This is not over. Valera appeared beside them, her purple armor scorched and dented. She looked at Daniel differently now, her earlier contempt replaced by something else. You fought well, she said simply. We are not done fighting, Daniel replied. He checked the Reaper weapon he had taken. Still charged, still functional. Where is the main security command center? Central hub, 3 levels down, Valera said. But it is heavily contested. Then that is where we need to be. Daniel started walking down the corridor, ignoring the pain in his shoulder and leg. Valera fell into step beside him. You are wounded. I have been worse, Daniel said. It was not quite true. But he needed to move. Needed to act. People were dying, and he could still make a difference. Behind them, Amy and Nicole exchanged glances. He is not going to stop, is he? Nicole asked. No, ma'am, Amy said. That is not how humans work. The corridor leading to the central hub looked like a war zone. Blast marks scorched the walls. Bodies lay where they had fallen, both station security and Void Reapers. Emergency lights flickered, casting everything in a red glow. Daniel moved carefully, his weapon ready. Behind him came Valera and her 3 remaining guards. Amy and Nicole had gone with other delegates to the secure bunker, despite their protests. This was soldier work now. The hub controls all station defenses, Valera said quietly. If the Reapers take it, they control everything. Weapons, life support, communications. How many security forces are defending it? Unknown. Communications are down across most of the station. Daniel studied the corridor ahead. It opened into a large atrium before reaching the hub entrance. Perfect ambush location. We should wait for reinforcements, one of Valera's guards said. There might not be reinforcements, Daniel replied. He looked at Valera. Your call. This is your Empire's station. Valera's eyes narrowed. You would defer to me? I would work with you, Daniel said. There is a difference. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. We go forward. Carefully, they advanced through the corridor. Daniel took point, using his smaller size to check corners. The Kael'thar warriors followed, their heavy armor making soft clanking sounds. The atrium appeared empty. Too empty. Daniel's instincts screamed warning. Stop, he whispered. Something is wrong. He scanned the space. 3 levels of balconies surrounded the atrium. Dozens of places for shooters to hide. The main hub entrance sat directly opposite them, blast doors sealed tight. "They are waiting for us," Valera said. Daniel nodded. "Any other routes to the hub?" "Service tunnels, but they will be trapped or guarded. Then we need to make them think we are coming from a different direction." Daniel looked around. "Those balconies. Can we reach them?" "There are access stairs, but we would be exposed." Daniel smiled grimly. "Not if we give them something else to shoot at," he explained quickly. Valera listened, then showed her teeth in what might have been a smile. "Risky," she said. "You have a better idea?" "No." They split up. Valera and 2 guards took the left stairs. Daniel and the remaining guard took the right. They moved quietly, weapons ready. Daniel reached the second-level balcony and pressed against the wall. Below, the atrium remained still. He could feel eyes watching from the shadows. He grabbed a piece of debris and threw it across the atrium. It clattered against the opposite wall. Immediately, weapons fire erupted from multiple positions. Reapers on the upper balconies opened up, their energy blasts lighting the darkness. But they were firing at the sound, not at actual targets. Daniel and the Kael'thar guard moved while the Reapers were distracted. They reached a position overlooking the hub entrance. Below, Daniel could see 4 Reapers guarding the sealed doors. Across the atrium, Valera had reached a similar position. She caught Daniel's eye and nodded. They opened fire together. The crossfire caught the Reapers below by surprise. 2 went down immediately. The others scrambled for cover. But Daniel and Valera kept shooting. The remaining Reapers fell, but the noise brought more attackers. Reapers poured onto the balconies from hidden positions. Daniel counted at least 15, maybe 20. "Fall back," Valera shouted. They retreated toward the hub entrance, firing as they went. Daniel's weapon was running low on charge. He grabbed a fallen Reaper's blade instead. The weight unfamiliar, but better than nothing. A Reaper charged him on the stairs. Daniel sidestepped and drove the blade into an armor joint. The attacker fell past him, tumbling down the stairs. Another came, and another. Daniel fought with desperate speed, using every dirty trick he had learned in a dozen Earth conflicts. The Kael'thar guard beside him fell with a blast to the chest. Daniel grabbed the warrior's weapon and kept fighting. They reached the hub entrance. Valera was trying to override the blast doors, her fingers flying across the control panel. Her 2 remaining guards held the stairs, their armor absorbing hits that would have killed anyone else. "How long?" Daniel shouted over the weapon's fire. "Working on it," Valera snapped. A Reaper threw something that clattered at Daniel's feet. Grenade. He kicked it back up the stairs. It exploded among a group of attackers, the blast throwing bodies like toys. The doors opened. Valera, Daniel, and the 2 guards stumbled through. The doors sealed behind them. Inside the hub, station security forces aimed weapons at the new arrivals, then lowered them when they recognized Valera. "Princess, thank the stars." A security commander rushed forward. "We thought everyone was lost." "Status," Valera demanded. "The Reapers control 40% of the station. We are holding critical areas, but losing ground. Communications are jammed. We cannot call for outside help." Daniel moved to a tactical display showing the station layout. Red zones indicated Reaper control. Blue showed secure areas. "Too much red. They are cutting us off from the communication arrays," Daniel said, "isolating the station before they finish us." "How do you know their strategy?" the security commander asked. "Because it is what I would do." Daniel studied the display. "They are not trying to destroy the station. They are taking it intact." "Why?" Valera asked. "Because Zenith Prime is a diplomatic station in neutral space. If they control it, they control access to this entire sector. Every ship passing through has to deal with them." The security commander went pale. "That would give them legitimacy. Other pirates would flock to them. They would become a real power. Then we cannot let them take it," Valera said. Daniel was already analyzing the tactical display. The Reapers were good, but they had made a mistake. They had concentrated their forces to hold key positions, spreading themselves thin elsewhere. Here, Daniel pointed to a section near the communication array. They are weakest here. If we hit them fast and hard, we can break through. With what forces? The commander asked. I have 30 security personnel. The Reapers have hundreds. Hundreds spread across a huge station, Daniel countered. At this weak point, they might have 20. We can take 20. Might have, Valera said. War is uncertainty. Daniel met her eyes. But doing nothing guarantees we lose. Valera looked at the display, then at Daniel's burned and bloody uniform. You can barely stand. Report. I can still fight. Why? She asked. This is not your station. Not your empire. You could hide in the bunker with the other diplomats. Daniel thought about the delegates he had helped escape. The elderly aliens he had led to safety. The security forces who had died protecting others. Because people need help, he said simply. That is reason enough. Valera stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Then she turned to her guards. Prepare for assault. We move in 5 minutes. They gathered the security forces, 30 defenders against an unknown number of Reapers. Poor odds. But Daniel had faced worse. He checked his weapons, tested his injured shoulder. The pain was manageable with adrenaline. He would pay for this later, but later did not matter if there was no later. Valera approached as he was preparing. At Frontier Station. 2 years ago. You were there. Daniel went still. How do you know about that? I asked Chancellor Voss. After the Garden Dome attack. He told me the real story. Not the public version. And I am beginning to understand why Commander Morrison spoke highly of humans, Valera said. 43 soldiers, 4,000 Reapers. 6 days. We did what we had to do. You held the line while 12,000 civilians escaped, Valera continued. Species from 7 different worlds. Only 7 of your soldiers survived. Daniel said nothing. I mocked you, Valera said quietly. Called you weak. Questioned your courage. And all this time, you were one of the survivors of the worst last stand in recent history. It does not matter. It matters to me. Valera's voice was fierce. I owe you an apology that I cannot give properly while we are fighting for our lives. So I will give it after. If we survive. When we survive, Daniel corrected. Soldiers do not plan to die. Valera smiled. Now you sound like a Kael'thar. The assault began with precision timing. Daniel led one group through maintenance corridors, while Valera took another through the main passages. They hit the Reaper position from 2 directions. The fighting was brutal and close. Daniel's injured shoulder limited his sword work, so he used his weapon as a club, breaking armor and bones. Beside him, the Kael'thar warriors fought with the skill of a warrior race. But the Reapers were professionals too. They gave ground slowly, making the attackers pay for every meter. Daniel rounded a corner and came face to face with a Reaper commander, identifiable by the rank marks on his armor. They both fired at once. Daniel's shot hit armor. The Reaper's blast grazed Daniel's side, burning through uniform and skin. They closed to melee range. The Reaper was skilled, his blade work precise. Daniel was tired, injured, and slower than usual. The Reaper drove him back, blade flashing. Then Valera was there, her sword taking the Reaper's head with a single perfect strike. We are even, she said. They fought side by side after that, covering each other's weaknesses. Where Daniel used improvisation and unpredictable tactics, Valera brought formal training and superior strength. Together, they were devastating. The Reapers broke and fled toward their fallback positions. Daniel's forces pushed forward, reclaiming corridor after corridor. They reached the communication array just as massive ships dropped out of hyperspace outside the station. Warships, dozens of them, bearing the crest of the Kael'thar Empire. The cavalry arrives, Valera said with satisfaction. Daniel sagged against a wall, exhaustion finally catching him. About time. The lead warship transmitted. Valera's face lit up. "Mother," she whispered. On the view screen, Empress Kaelara appeared. She looked exactly like her daughter would in 30 years, with the same purple skin and glowing eyes. But where Valera had pride, the Empress had certainty. "Secure the station," the Empress commanded her forces. Then, her eyes found Valera. "Daughter, report." "The station is secured, Mother. The Reapers are in retreat." "Good." The Empress's gaze shifted. "And who is that with you?" Valera stepped aside, revealing Daniel in his blood-stained, burned uniform. "Captain Daniel Harris," Valera said. "Human delegation." He led the defense of the central hub. The Empress studied Daniel for a long moment. "I see," she said finally. "We will speak when I arrive." The transmission ended. Valera looked at Daniel. "That was my mother," she said unnecessarily. "I gathered," Daniel replied. "She is going to want to know everything." "Then you should tell her the truth." "I intend to," Valera said. "All of it." The medical bay worked on Daniel for 2 hours. They cleaned and sealed his burns, repaired the damage to his shoulder, and treated a dozen smaller wounds he had not noticed during the fighting. The doctors were efficient but kept giving him strange looks. Apparently, humans were tougher than their files suggested. Amy arrived while they were finishing bandages. "Sir, the Empress has arrived. She wants to see you. Now." Daniel pulled on a fresh uniform, moving carefully around his bandaged shoulder. Every muscle ached, and his head still rang from the earlier explosion. But he could walk, and that would have to be enough. The Empress had taken over a conference room overlooking the damaged garden dome. Through the window, Daniel could see repair crews already working on the collapsed structure. The Void Reapers had been driven off the station, their forces scattered by the Kael'thar warships. Empress Kaelara stood with her back to the door, watching the repairs. She was taller than her daughter, and her armor was darker, marked with symbols that spoke of decades of battles. 2 royal guards flanked the entrance, but they stepped aside when Daniel approached. "Captain Harris," the Empress said without turning. "Enter." Daniel walked in. The door closed behind him, leaving them alone. "You have had an interesting few days," the Empress said. "Yes, ma'am. My daughter tells me you saved the central hub, and before that, you helped evacuate the garden dome. You are being credited with saving over 100 lives. I did what any soldier would do." "No." The Empress turned to face him. Her eyes were ancient and sharp. "You did what a human soldier would do." "There is a difference." Daniel said nothing. The Empress gestured to chairs. "Sit. You look ready to collapse." He sat gratefully. The Empress remained standing, studying him like a specimen under glass. "I have been reading about Earth," she said. "Your military history, your wars. Do you know what I found interesting?" "No, ma'am." "You have never stopped fighting," the Empress said. "For your entire recorded history, humans have been at war. Sometimes with each other, sometimes with nature itself. You have never known true peace. We are working toward it. Are you?" The Empress tilted her head. "Or are you simply exporting your conflicts to a larger stage? The Coalition accepted you because you offered trade and technology, but I wonder if they understood what they were truly accepting. We are not a threat to the Coalition." "I did not say you were a threat," the Empress corrected. "I said you were something they did not understand. There is a difference." She moved to the window, her hands clasped behind her back. "The Kael'thar have fought wars for 3 centuries. We are warriors by culture and choice. We train from childhood. We honor strength. We value martial prowess. Above all else. I know. Your reputation is well known. And yet today, a human captain with no special training, no superior equipment, and barely any support, held a critical position against overwhelming odds. You improvised weapons. You turned a garden into a battlefield. You adapted to situations faster than trained special forces." The Empress turned back to face him. "Tell me, Captain Harris, how did a species that has never left its own solar system become so proficient at war?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. We had no choice. Earth is a hard world. Storms, predators, disease, natural disasters. We learned to adapt or die. When we ran out of natural enemies, we became enemies to ourselves. We have been refining the art of combat for thousands of years. Refining it against yourselves, the Empress said. That is the key difference. The Kael'thar fight external enemies. You fight internal ones. Do you know what that creates? What? Desperation, the Empress said. When you fight your own kind, there is no one coming to save you. No reinforcements from another world. No retreat to a home planet. You win, or you lose with what you have. That breeds a very particular kind of warrior. She walked closer. At Frontier Station, you and 42 others held against 4,000 Void Reapers for 6 days. The official report says it was a defensive action, but I read the classified version. You were not defending. You were buying time. Daniel's throat tightened. Yes, ma'am. 12,000 civilians evacuated. 7 different species. Only 7 of your soldiers survived. The Empress's voice was soft. Why did you stay? Oh no, because someone had to. That is not an answer. Daniel met her eyes. Because those civilians were people. Parents with children. Elderly who could not run. Injured who could not fight. They needed time to escape. And we could give them that time, even though it meant dying. We knew the odds, Daniel said quietly. But we also knew that if we did not hold, those people would die. That was unacceptable. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. My daughter mocked you. Called you weak. Questioned your courage in front of the entire coalition assembly. She did. She was testing you. Trying to provoke you into a formal challenge. Do you know why? To prove human inferiority. No. The Empress said. To prove Kael'thar superiority. There is a difference. My daughter is young and sees strength only as physical prowess. She has not yet learned that the strongest warriors are those who fight for something beyond themselves. The Empress moved to the door and opened it. Valera, enter. Valera walked in, her armor cleaned but still dented from the fighting. She looked nervous, which Daniel had not thought possible. Mother, she began. Silence, the Empress said. Not harshly, but with absolute authority. Valera went silent immediately. The Empress looked at her daughter. You have dishonored yourself, our house, and our empire. Valera flinched. You mocked an officer who has shown more courage in 3 days than you have shown in your entire life. You questioned the worth of a soldier who has sacrificed more than you can imagine. You acted with arrogance, born of ignorance. Mother, I said silence. The Empress repeated. Then she spoke a single word in the Kael'thar language. Daniel did not understand it, but he saw Valera's eyes go wide with shock. The Empress repeated it in Galactic Common, her voice carrying through the open door to where other delegates had gathered. Kneel immediately. The watching delegates gasped. Even Daniel understood what this meant. In Kael'thar culture, royalty never kneeled to anyone, except the Emperor himself. This was a profound act of submission and acknowledgement. Valera stood frozen, her pride warring with her duty. Now, daughter, the Empress said, or you shame us further. Slowly, Valera sank to one knee before Daniel. Her head bowed. In the doorway, delegates murmured in shock. Captain Daniel Harris, Valera said formally. I apologize for my words and actions. I questioned your courage when I should have recognized it. I mocked your strength when I should have learned from it. I dishonored you, and in doing so, dishonored myself. Daniel looked at the Empress, uncertain. You may speak, the Empress said. Daniel looked down at Valera. Stand up. She looked up, confused. Please, Daniel said. Stand up. Warriors should not kneel to each other. Valera rose slowly. Daniel extended his hand. After a moment, she took it. Your apology is accepted, Daniel said. But you do not need to kneel. We fought together today. That makes us allies, not enemies. The Empress nodded approvingly. Well spoken. But the lesson needed to be taught. She addressed the gathered delegates. Let it be known throughout the coalition. The Kael'thar Empire recognizes humanity, not as junior partners or soft-worlders, but as warriors worthy of respect. Any who question this will answer to me. Chancellor Voss stepped forward from the crowd. A wise decision. Empress. Today has shown us all what humans are capable of when pushed. Indeed, the Empress said. Which brings me to my next point. She looked at Daniel. The coalition is forming a task force to hunt down the remaining Void Reapers. They need a commander who understands unconventional warfare. Someone who can adapt and improvise. Someone who fights for more than glory. Daniel blinked. Ma'am, I am recommending you for the position, the Empress said. With Kael'thar forces under your command. I am just a captain. I do not have the rank. You have the experience, the Empress interrupted. And more importantly, you have the mindset. The Void Reapers are not a conventional enemy. They cannot be defeated through standard tactics. They need to be outthought and outfought by someone who understands desperate combat. Mother, Valera said, I would like to serve under Captain Harris, if he will have me. Daniel looked at her in surprise. I need to learn, Valera said. Today you showed me that I know nothing about real warfare. I want to understand. Please. Daniel thought about it. About leading Kael'thar warriors, the most feared military force in the coalition. About hunting Void Reapers through hostile space. About everything that could go wrong. Then he thought about the 12,000 civilians at Frontier Station. About the delegates he had helped save today. About making sure fewer people had to make the choices he had made. I accept, he said. On one condition. Name it, the Empress said. No more kneeling. Daniel looked at Valera. We are equals in this fight. Act like it. Valera smiled. Agreed. Creed, the Empress nodded. Then it is settled. The task force will form within the week. You will have full authority to recruit personnel and plan operations as you see fit. The delegates began talking among themselves, some excited, others concerned. The announcement would change coalition military structure. Humans, barely a member species, given command of a major operation. Amy appeared at Daniel's side. Sir, Ambassador Grant wants to speak with you. She seems excited and slightly terrified. That sounds about right, Daniel said. The Empress gestured for the others to leave. Soon, only she and Daniel remained. A final word of advice, Captain, she said. The Void Reapers are brutal, but predictable. The real challenge will be the politics. Many species will resist your command. They will question, undermine, and sabotage if given the chance. Then, I will have to prove myself. You already have, the Empress said. To me, and to anyone who was here today. But not everyone was here. Some will need convincing. Let them try to stop me, Daniel said. I have faced worse odds. The Empress laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Yes, you have. That is why I chose you. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. My daughter genuinely wants to learn from you. Be patient with her. Pride is difficult to set aside. I will. Good. The Empress looked back one last time. Your species has something rare, Captain Harris. You fight hardest when protecting others. Not when protecting yourselves. That is a strength beyond measure. Use it wisely. She left. Daniel stood alone in the conference room, looking out at the damaged station being rebuilt. In 3 days, he had gone from a mocked delegate to a task force commander, from dismissed as weak to recognized as worthy, but he knew the real test was coming. Leading the hunt for the Void Reapers would be dangerous. Some of his forces would not come home. That was the nature of war. He thought about his lost friends from Frontier Station, about the promise he had made over their graves to make their sacrifice mean something. Maybe now he could. The door opened. Nicole Grant, Amy, and surprisingly, Commander Morrison entered together. "So," Nicole said, "Task Force Commander, when were you planning to mention you wanted a promotion?" "About 10 seconds before you tried to talk me out of it," Daniel replied. Morrison grinned. "I told you humans were something special. Glad the rest of the galaxy is finally catching on." "We are going to need a team," Daniel said. "People who can think on their feet. Who can adapt. Who put the mission above glory." "I know a few candidates," Morrison said, "if you are willing to work with non-humans." "I just agreed to lead Kael'thar warriors," Daniel pointed out. "I think I can manage diversity." They talked late into the night, planning and strategizing. Building a task force from scratch. Preparing to hunt an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere among them, the Void Reapers were regrouping, planning their next attack. But now they had something they had never faced before. A human who would not quit. Who would adapt. Who would fight not for conquest or glory, but because people needed protection. And he would not be fighting alone. The galaxy was learning what Earth had known for centuries. When humanity decides to protect something, they do not stop until the job is done. Or until they cannot fight anymore. And even then, they usually keep fighting anyway.